was supposed to be just another routine day at Browns camp. Drills, throws, media chatter. And then everything changed. Kenny Pickett, the so-called frontrunner in Cleveland's quarterback carousel, pulled up with a hamstring tweak. Just like that, the competition tilted. But while fans and analysts scrambled to dissect Pickett's limp, someone else quietly stepped forward, someone the league had been trying to ignore. Standing at the edge of that practice field, eyes locked in, helmet strapped, was Shedeur Sanders. No cameras on him, no buzz, just a man who's been waiting, grinding, and silently daring the NFL to doubt him one more time. For weeks, Shedeur had been thrown to the bottom of the depth chart, buried behind veterans, running with practice squad scraps, and still making plays no one wanted to talk about. But this moment, this shift in energy, it wasn't luck, it was timing, divine timing. And if you believe in that sort of thing, then you already know God doesn't make mistakes. The Browns didn't plan for this, they didn't want it, but now they might have to face it. Because the man they labeled a camp body might just be the answer they never saw coming. Before anyone was talking about quarterback battles or surprise injuries, Shedeur Sanders was quietly living a different reality, one built on disrespect. He wasn't just behind the curve, he was buried in it. The Browns didn't treat him like a prospect. They treated him like a placeholder, a throw-in, a fifth-round name with a famous father, tossed into the roster like an extra body to help run drills. While other quarterbacks took snaps with rising stars and legit receivers, Shedeur was tossing spirals to equipment guys and staffers. That's not development, that's sabotage. Yet somehow, he made it work. He didn't just survive in the shadows. He showed glimpses, quick releases, perfect touch, pocket control. Even when surrounded by chaos and scraps, he made the offense look alive. And through it all, not a single complaint. No interviews begging for reps, no social media drama. Just tunnel vision and trust in the process. Because deep down, Shedeur knew something they didn't. The moment was coming. And when it did, he'd be ready. All he had to do was stay locked in and let the league keep sleeping. But that quiet patience, it wasn't weakness, it was strategy. It happened fast, almost too fast to process. One awkward plant, one strained hamstring, and just like that, Kenny Pickett limped out of practice and straight into uncertainty. The whistle blew. Trainers rushed in. The energy on the field shifted. Not panic, but tension. Because in the NFL, it only takes one bad step to open the door for someone else. And Shedeur Sanders, he was already standing in the doorway. No warning, no heads up, just an opportunity. Finally, Pickett's absence meant open reps, chemistry lost, trust gaps widening. And while the Browns scrambled to reshuffle the quarterback rotation, Shedeur didn't flinch. He strapped his helmet, stepped into the huddle, and ran the offense like it was his name on the depth chart. Not Flacco's, not Gabriel's, and definitely not Pickett's. This wasn't just another backup stepping in. This was a statement, a silent reminder that Shedeur's been ready, that all those weeks with equipment guys weren't wasted. They were rehearsals. And now, under real pressure, with real stakes, he wasn't just filling a space, he was making it his own. And suddenly, the guy nobody was watching became the one no one could ignore. On paper, the Browns' quarterback room looks like a war zone. 4 names, 1 football, and a coaching staff walking a tightrope. You've got Joe Flacco, the veteran with a Super Bowl ring and the urgency of a man who's already packed for retirement. Kenny Pickett, the injury-prone trade piece, still trying to prove his NFL flame hasn't burned out. Dillon Gabriel, the flashy rookie with mobility but major consistency issues. And then there's Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round pick with 0 margin for error and more eyes on his last name than his arm. But this isn't just a battle for reps. It's a quiet war behind closed doors, Because Shedeur wasn't Andrew Berry's guy. The GM made his move trading for Pickett. That was his play, his bet. But word around Cleveland? The Shedeur pick came from higher up. Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, wanted him. Not for PR, not for clicks, but because he saw something real. And if Shedeur starts to shine, that's not just a win on the field. It's a direct challenge to the front office hierarchy. And that war, it's about more than arm strength. It's about ego. From the second Shedeur Sanders arrived in Cleveland, the tone was set. He wasn't seen as a competitor. He wasn't framed as a threat. He was called a camp body, not by internet trolls, but by respected analysts. That label stuck. It followed him through drills, into meetings, and right onto the back of the depth chart. Never mind that he threw for over 3,000 yards behind a broken Colorado line. Never mind that he's outworked veterans, studied relentlessly, and showed poise beyond his age. The league didn't care. The media didn't care. They saw a fifth-round pick with a flashy name and assumed entitlement, not talent. While other rookies were getting real reps, Shedeur was tossing routes to staff members folding towels an hour later. Think about that. A quarterback, a franchise-level position, being told to develop chemistry with people who don't even wear jerseys on Sundays. That's not normal. That's not football. That's straight-up sabotage. And yet, Shedeur never cracked, never flinched, because deep down, he understood something brutal but honest. The only way to shut people up is to make it undeniable. And disrespect, that's just fuel with the label ripped off. At first, nobody was checking for Shedeur. Twitter was quiet. Local reporters barely mentioned his name. Even Browns fans, who've lived through more quarterback heartbreak than most, weren't buying the hype. They called him a project, a PR stunt, or worse, just another failed Sanders experiment waiting to happen. But after Kenny went down, something changed. Clips started circulating. One angle showed Shedeur threading a laser between two defenders. Another showed him walking calmly off the field while coaches stared at their clipboards like they'd just seen something they weren't ready to admit. The passes were sharp, the decision-making even sharper. And fans, real fans, started asking the one question that changes everything. Why wasn't he playing sooner? The chatter got louder. Comments flooded in. Even rival fans started acknowledging what Cleveland tried to keep quiet. That this kid doesn't just have NFL talent. He might have QB1 energy. This wasn't hype built on hope. It was built on film, on proof, on results. And once the fans start seeing the truth, front offices don't get to ignore it for long. You can't fake energy in a locker room. Guys know who's real and who's just riding the wave. And lately, Shedeur's name is getting brought up in places that matter. Not in pressers, but in whispered conversations between players. Because when he steps in, things click. Receivers are getting hit in stride. Timing feels natural. And the huddle? It's calm, confident. Even the offensive line, which struggled with cohesion early in camp, has been noticeably more locked in when Shedeur's under center. It's not just about talent. It's about trust. Sources say a few veterans have started pulling coaches aside. Not to trash anyone, but to nudge. To ask questions like, are we giving this kid enough looks? Or, did you see how smooth that last series ran? No one's starting a QB mutiny, not yet. But loyalty in the NFL is fluid. It follows momentum, and right now, that momentum is quietly shifting toward a rookie nobody expected to matter this fast. And when the locker room shifts, coaches usually follow. Just a few days ago, Shedeur Sanders was barely mentioned in Cleveland's camp coverage. Buried in articles, passed over in interviews, and left off highlight reels entirely. The big stories were all about Flacco's experience, Pickett's rehab, and Gabriel's potential. Shedeur? He was treated like background noise. But now, reporters can't stop talking about him. It started with a clip, then a tweet, then a segment on local radio that exploded online. Has the Browns' best quarterback been on the bench this whole time? Suddenly, outlets that hadn't said his name once were running side-by-side comparisons of Shedeur versus Gabriel. Analysts started using words like poise, presence, and accuracy under pressure. Even national voices, ones that once doubted him, are circling back. Not admitting they were wrong, but definitely shifting tone. And Shedeur? He's still silent, still focused, because he knows this spotlight wasn't handed to him. He ripped it out of the shadows. And once the media flips, the pressure to act isn't just on coaches, it's on the entire franchise.